Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Jan Mabey, and I am your worship associate today, and I am glad to be here. I am joined by Reverend Sean Wilshire, our minister, Beth Syverson, our Director of Music Ministries, and Karen Magoon Pearson, who is our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth, in welcoming you this morning. We'd also like to recognize the many volunteers that have helped put this service together today, all up here on the Zoom screen. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on Hachiman and Tongva land. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. To our roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phones. And for our Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat if you haven't already. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you're seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. Later in the service, we will have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you'd like to do so. We begin our worship with the lighting of our chalice, and this morning I would like to invite Charlene Gursky to come up here to help me light the chalice. Charlene and her husband have been members for about 5 years, and they have recently moved out of the area, but they're still members, and they'll come off and on to visit. So as she says, lights the chalice, let us say our unison affirmation. There you go. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together. Please join in singing our opening song.
Good morning. Rise in body or spirit, please. And let's start off the service with When the Spirit Says Do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says do. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. Oh Lord, you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. Bring it down now. Spirit says sing. 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 Let's love. You got to love when the Spirit says love. You got to love when the Spirit says love. When the Spirit says love, you got to love. Oh Lord, you got to love when the Spirit says love. 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 Let's one more time. You got to do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. Do 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 do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit
Our opening reading this morning is one that's special to my heart. It really helped me when I was discerning my call to this ministry. Some of you have probably ever heard it. It's pretty a famous reading. It goes like this: our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, well, who am I to be brilliant or gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us. It's in everyone. Are you listening? Our story for our time for all ages is about someone who didn't at first listen. So once upon a time, a very long time ago, there was this god named Jehovah. He was the god of the Jews, and he came to this guy named Jonah, and Jehovah said to Jonah, so I want you to go to the city of Nineveh, who I know you don't really like these people or anything like that, but you need to tell them that they're behaving really badly and they better shape up, okay? I'm really peeved how they're treating one another, and if they don't shape up, well, just saying. But you know what? Jonah didn't want to go. Instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah heads out on the first ship to Tarshish, which is basically in the total opposite direction. But just as Jonah thought he was getting away with it and he laid down to take a nap, like, you can't make me go to Nineveh, Jehovah, the God, he sends up this huge storm that comes crashing up and is threatened to break up the ship. And the sailors are all freaked out. You know, they're like throwing cargo overboard. They're going, hey, come on, get up, Jonah, help us out here. And the sailors are trying to figure out what's going on. So they do what's called casting lots, which is kind of like doing a tarot reading. Like they're trying to figure out what's going on here. Whose God did they piss off, basically? So they said, all of those signs from the casting of lots actually pointed to Jonah. So they go to like, what's going on here, man? Who'd you upset? Because, where are you from? And he says, well, I'm Jewish, and I worship Jehovah, the God of all things. And yeah, I kind of disobeyed him. And he said, well, what can you do to appease your God? And he said, well, yeah, he was an honest man, if anything, okay? He said, well, toss me overboard because, yeah, this is all my fault. Now, the sailors, they didn't want to do this, but basically it kept going, so they kind of tossed him over to save themselves. And as they did, the sea stopped raging. But Jehovah was not yet done with Jonah. He sent a big fish, maybe it was kind of a whale, right? And he went and it swallowed up Jonah, swallowed him whole. And Jonah was there in the belly of that giant fish for 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights. I like to think of it as like a divine timeout, right? And Jonah finally apologized. He's like, okay, it must have been smelly in there. So he apologized and he agrees to go to Nineveh. And with that, the fish spits him out up on land. So it's back to square one. Go to Nineveh, that great city, and tell them what I told you to say. So Jonah sets off to the city, and he walks around the great city for 3 days, saying to them, you better be nice to one another, because in 4 days, boy, this city is going to be toast. And here's the amazing thing. The people listened. They listened to Jonah. The king decreed that everyone should apologize and be humble. So everybody did, and everybody was. And when Jehovah saw that he did, he's like, okay, then I'm not going to, wipe out this city or anything like that, much to everybody's relief in this city, as you can imagine. But not to Jonah. He was angry. He's like, man, I did what you asked. I told them that you were going to take them out in 4 days, but now you change your mind. And he goes outside the city, sits down, and he pouts. And Jehovah says to him, why are you angry and pouting? I was pretty merciful to you. You got to live in that fish, all right? You disobeyed me, and you knew what was right. Should I be less merciful to an entire city when they didn't even know better? Basically, I think what God was asking Jonah is that the kind of person you want to be and you want me to be? But you know what? That's how the story ends. What do you think was Jonah's reply? That's our story for today. I'd like to invite Karen McGoon-Pearson. She's our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth. She's going to light the children's chalice, and we will then send them out to the religious education classes.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
Okay, our reading today is called Don't Talk to Me of God. The author is unknown, but this was originally written in Spanish, so translated to English. Don't talk to me about God. Don't talk to me about your religious beliefs. I want to see how you treat your spouse, your children, your parents, your animals, your precious body. Don't preach to me about virtue or sin or how to change your life in one day. Show me how well you listen, how you open up to information that doesn't fit your personal philosophy or religious beliefs. I want to see how you treat those who disagree with you. Don't tell me how woke you are, the free that you feel from the ego. I want to know you below your words. I want to know how you are when you're in trouble. If you can fully admit your pain without pretending to be invulnerable. If you can feel your anger without giving way to violence. If you can allow access to your pain without becoming its slave. If you can feel your shame without humiliating others. If you can screw it all up and admit it. If you can say sorry sincerely. If you can be fully human in your divinity, please don't tell me about God. Show me the God in you.
I don't know if you're aware of this, for those of you who've been around here for a while, but almost 10 years to the day, I stood before you, as I am now, and I was voted in, I was called as your minister. Thank you. And 10 years, by the way, that's like the longest I've ever been in any job, so I'm kind of excited about this. But all of this, as I've been kind of leading up to this, I've been looking forward to doing this service, and had me thinking about my call. Because having a call, I've discovered, is not actually really about having a profession, per se. A call is about finding out who you are as a person. A vocation is then maybe, to me, finding a profession that fits who you are. And what I've learned is that a call is not something that happens to us once or just twice, but it's an ongoing answer to the question, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? But we don't really ask that question very often, do we? Who do you want to be? Instead, we jump ahead of that and we get asked, particularly when we're growing up, right? What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Did you get asked this growing up? What do you want to be? That happened a lot in my family. And I was asked this all the time, and I would actually get very anxious about it because I really had no idea, but everybody expected me somehow to have an answer. So like whenever we would go to family gatherings, you would get this, so what do you want to be when you grow up, Sean? I'd try to find something that maybe would be kind of like okay, like a doctor, a lawyer, I don't know. But I remember kind of, it felt like I had to have a plan. I had to know at even a young age what I wanted to do with my life. But nobody ever asked me, who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? So it's a little bit odd, against all the odds, because I had atheist and agnostic parents who didn't really think much of religion, that I ended up as a minister. I find it kind of amusing, and how in the world did that happen? But I want to ask, how about you? Do you remember being asked ever, who do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? Because I think that's the funny thing about a call. We're always called, we're always becoming something, and I believe this wholeheartedly. In the last 10 years, I think a lot has changed. I've changed quite a lot. And professionally, for example, I'll say, I'm way more relaxed and animated in the pulpit. You all have told me this. So I'm very glad to say that I am much more. This is a vulnerable place to be, just so you know. And I'm sure I was much more stiff in the beginning. I do know now that whenever there's a pastoral problem, I don't panic. I'm like, okay, this is what we do. This is how we're going to handle this. Things still come out of left field at times, and yet I'm kind of like, okay, I've got great people. We can do this. I've got way better work-life balance than I did when I started. So in short, I can tell you that after 10 years of being here, I'm happy. Yay, right? Right? That's a happy thing. That is a wonderful thing. But I have to tell you, I didn't start out that way when I first got here. And in fact, after the first few months, I felt kind of discontented, I guess would be the word. I don't know what it was. Because you see, I've always been someone who was all about what I do, right? I like goals, so I can check them off. Anybody use like to-do notes and you like hit the check off? Oh, I don't just check things off, I cross them out too. Because I love to do that. It makes me feel like I accomplished things, right? So I had accomplished this goal that I've been trying for almost a decade to reach, which is to find a wonderful, settled ministry, my very first one. And so I found myself asking the question, was sort of like, well, now what? What comes next? And it wasn't as if we didn't have a lot to do, right? I mean, the job was great and it was challenging. We had just moved to this location. There was lots of things to be done. We had lots of things going on, and filling my days was not hard at all, serving the community and facing all of its challenges. And I was like, why isn't that enough? What's going on? And if you've ever had this happen to you, where you get to a good point in your life, get what you kind of always wanted, right? And then you think, well, now what? It's kind of a discontented feeling that feels like you're out of place in your life. And it feels weird because you do have everything that you thought you wanted. And this discontented feel often happens at the different transitions in our lives, whether it's going off to college or trying to figure out what to major in, leaving college and trying to figure out your way in the world, getting that first real job, moving out on your own, getting married, having kids, getting promoted, getting a new job, and of course there's retirement, right? All of those things. And I've seen particularly a lot of people when they retire, they're kind of like, well, what do I do now, right? It can happen anywhere in our late 20s, middle age, elderly, all these sort of, even like the stereotypical like middle age crisis. So at some point of your life, chances are you may face this feeling of discontentment with a good life. So that's what I kind of want to invite you with this morning, just to start you out. Wouldn't you think of a time when you felt a little bit discontent? Now or in the past? Something that, you were asking, now what? So I want to invite you into just a time of contemplation to think about if you want to soften your eyes or take a few deep breaths. Maybe something's already occurred to you, and just kind of go into that place where you're like, I don't quite understand, but I want you to listen to that feeling, that sense of discontentment. Go deeply into that. And what do you think it might be trying to tell you? You don't have to act, just listen. And as you listen, you're welcome to join Beth and the choir in singing.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
Voice still and small. I love this song because I think that now what feeling of discontent is a feeling at some point, it's a kind of a call. It's trying to tell you something. If we could just figure out how to listen. I believe that discontented feeling is because we're not yet done becoming. There's something that we still need to do. I mean, we think we're done, right? We check the box, but we aren't. And of course, if you're like me, you might feel guilty about that now what feeling, right? Because shouldn't you just be happy with what you have? Shouldn't you be happy? I got this great congregation. Why am I feeling this restlessness, this discontentment? The problem for many of us is that we don't listen to that feeling, or we misinterpret it. We feel guilty. We feel like it's a bad feeling. We go out, maybe we buy something, maybe that hot red sports car or a whole new wardrobe. I've known people to have affairs. They want something new, something to get rid of that feeling. Maybe it's something self-destructive like addiction. Something comes up. We just want that feeling to go away. So we're kind of a bit like Jonah, right? The first time around, we head in the opposite direction of where we are called. But sometimes we need a divine timeout, right? So that we can learn to listen to that still small voice. These are lessons in life that help us grow, but more importantly, they get us to finally to listen. Maybe we spend some time in the fish. But if you want to avoid going in the wrong direction, you've got to learn to listen to what's going on inside of us, listening to that call. And Howard Thurman, who's one of my favorite people, the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, he said it so brilliantly to the 1980 class at Spelman College. If you didn't know, Spelman College is an all-women's black college. And he wrote this as part of his address to them as they were graduating. He said, "There is something in every one of you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And if you cannot hear it, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it and then do not follow it, it was better that you had never been born." Harsh, man. He continues, "You are the only you that has ever lived. Your idiom, your existence is the only idiom of its kind in all of existence. And if you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in you, you will all your life spend your days on the ends of strings that someone else pulls. There is in you something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And sometimes there's so much traffic going on in your mind, so many different kinds of signals, so many vast impulses floating through your organism that go back thousands of generations, long before you were even thought in the mind of creation, and you are buffeted by these. And in the midst of all this, you have got to find out, what is your name? Who are you? How does the sound of the genuine come through to you? The sound of the genuine is flowing through you. So again, I want to invite you to think about this a little bit more. What do you think he means by the sound of the genuine? So again, I want to invite you into that place. Some deep breaths. Take those deep breaths, moving into that space. As you go back now, maybe to that feeling of discontentment, then now what? How do you hear the sound of the genuine? What does the sound of the genuine, how does it come to you? And here's another thing to think about. Why don't we listen to it? Why don't we listen to the sound of the genuine? And when you're ready, please join Beth and the choir in singing.
For still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
So why don't we ask ourselves this question? Who do you want to be? Because when I first came here, I got that discontented feeling of now what? I kept asking that well, now what? Well, now what? Well, now what? What do I do? What do I do? But suddenly I realized I was asking the wrong question. Instead, what I needed to do was to ask the question. I started asking, who would I like to be now? Who would I like to be now? And so many ideas started then flooding into me. It was like, okay, well, I want to be more compassionate. I want to be a better teacher. Oh, I've always wanted to learn art. Oh, wouldn't that be kind of cool? Or maybe doing some music as well. I want to stay with a congregation and learn what it is to watch children grow up in a congregation. I want to honor the people who have given their lives to this church and help bury them. I want to be a part of this. I want to know what it is to be in conflict with someone and still love that person. I want to learn and explore. I want to become. I had all of these things come to me. It was really cool. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got paralyzed. Well, which one do I do? How do I do all that? What do I do? So what is it that you think sometimes that holds us back from becoming who we are called to be? And by the way, this is not a trick question. Okay. What do you think? Starts with an F and it's 4 letters and it's not that word. Okay? Fear. Absolutely. It's fear, right? Fear, another 4-letter word, different one. That's something that comes upon all of us. We get overwhelmed, maybe, all sorts of different reasons why we are afraid. And I found this wonderful video by this woman named Tara Moore. She's the author of a book called Playing Big, and she's a life coach. She helps people become who they are called to be. And she talks about 2 different kinds of fear found in the Jewish tradition. So let's listen.
Hey everyone, it's Tara. And today I want to share with you one of my favorite teachings about fear. This is a teaching that has really changed my life and changed how I experience the fear that comes up when we go for our big dreams. It used to be I'd be working with coaching clients, and whenever we'd access a deep truth about their lives or really get in touch with and name their authentic desires and dreams, so much fear would come up. They'd feel afraid of what they had just uncovered or afraid of going for it. And I had been taught and trained that yes, when we get in touch with what we really want, we often feel a lot of fear because it's vulnerable and we're afraid of failure and rejection. But then I read a really surprising teaching by Rabbi Alan Liu, and it completely changed my understanding of what was happening there. Rabbi Liu writes about how in the Old Testament, in the ancient Hebrew, there are actually 2 different words used for fear. One of those words is pachad, and pachad means the fear of projected things or imagined things. So this is that overreactive, misguided fear that's always worried about the worst case scenario, that sees threats and dangers when they aren't really there. That's pachad. But he also talks about this second word for fear, yirah. This is the fear-like feeling that we feel when we're touching the sacred, when we're standing on holy ground. It's the fear that comes upon us when we're inhabiting a larger space than we are used to. This is the word to describe how Moses feels when he encounters the burning bush and hears the voice of God. When I read this, I understood, oh, that's what my clients were experiencing. When they were really getting in touch with the sacred voice within them, they were feeling that trembling, awe-like feeling of yirah. They were on holy ground. They were inhabiting something much more expansive than they were used to. Here's your action step for this week. When you're feeling pachad, see if you can choose to not take direction from that overreactive, irrational fear. And when you're feeling yirah, welcome it, lean into it, knowing it means you are standing on holy ground.
So to reiterate what Tara is talking about, so she's got the first type, pahad, that's a rational, projected, or imagined fear of failure, right? It shows up when we horribilize things, right? Our imagination runs away with us. But Yirah is a really interesting one, and I think that's part of what was happening to me. I had all these things that I could do, and it felt like I had to step into something that felt really huge. I felt that way even when I got the call to ministry, because I got the call to ministry, and remember, my family did not do religion at all. So the only religious or ministerial figure in my life was Martin Luther King Jr., right? Now, he's like basically a saint in my family. And I thought that that's somehow how I had to be. That's how I must be. I mean, I was freaked out. I'm like, oh no. In fact, when I went off to seminary, I actually originally just majored in spiritual direction because being a minister felt too big. I changed it after a semester. I was like, okay, step into this. So sometimes it takes us a while to work our way through all of that, right? I did really want to be a minister. I just didn't want to own it because it felt too big for me to do that. But the same thing after use happened with you all. I started asking, who do I want to be now? And I realized that I never explored my creative side. It just felt too daunting, too big. I didn't grow up. I grew up appreciating art and music, but I never grew up doing it, right? I wasn't a natural artist or musician. But I listened to that, and I got that feeling of what now went away. I answered a call. A friend had told me about an online art class I could take, and back then, it was 6 years ago or so, online classes were still kind of new, not so much anymore. That made me feel less insecure, like I didn't have to go to another class and everything, so I could start that way, and I found I loved it. And then one day, about 9 months ago, I made the mistake of telling Susan and Phil over there that I wanted to learn to play the banjo, and they said, do you want one? So no excuses left, because that's what will happen. If you put it out there to the universe will respond. I kind of believe that. Put it out there enough. And when I found that I answered this call to creativity, it made me more creative in my professional life, more creative in worship, in how I dealt with problems. It has affected me. But I do want to mention that there's another fear that is very real for a lot of people. That she doesn't really cover this fear, but I think it's another one. I actually found a Jewish word for it. It's called harem. It's the fear of being ostracized, right? The fear of people judging you, of your family saying, what the heck are you doing? Of your friends saying, I don't know you anymore, right? And I had experienced this, in fact. I've experienced it a number of times. Fear of rejection is a very real fear. When I decided to leave archaeology in graduate school, I remember my boss at the time refused to look at me. He was so disgusted. It's like, you're giving up this promising career. I'm like, yeah, okay. And my family, right, when I went off to be a minister, I mean, I still have cousins who look at me like, is she going to start being born again or something? I don't know, you know. Just so you know, by the way, I have no desire for a professional life. As an artist or a musician, it just feeds me, right? But sometimes listening to the sound of the genuine means striking out on our own, leaving behind those maybe who are not supportive, but want you to be what they want you to be. And that can be one of the hardest things to learn. Mary Oliver says this beautifully in her poem called The Journey. She wrote this. She says, one day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones, but little by little you left their voice behind. The stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. That is listening to the sound of the genuine. So I want to ask you now then, What fears are you struggling with? What holds you back maybe from your call? Again, I invite you into that time of contemplation, to soften your eyes, to plant your feet. What fears hold you back? Is it pahad? The big imagined fears of failure? Is it fear of your awesome, amazing light that asks you to step into something bigger than you've ever been able to step into before? Or is it fear of what others might say, how they might judge you, of losing your community? You know, facing these fears of failure, fears of our power, fears of rejection, these are no small feats to face those fears. But the end result, I am here to tell you, is happiness. I am happy because I faced it, right? And that's one of the big differences between now and 10 years ago. It wasn't that I was really unhappy 10 years ago. I loved you all. I was excited to be here, but I had not rounded out my life. There were calls I still needed to answer. And that's where I am now, and I'm enjoying these two calls of ministry and creativity. Maybe sometime in the future I'll get discontented again, but I'll know then not to ask what's next, but who do I want to be now? So what about you? Who do you want to be when you grow up, right? Who do you want to be now? So as one last contemplation, I'd like you to consider that. Even if you don't know, maybe just start asking the question, who are you called to be now? Who do you want to be? What comes back to you? So I'm going to ask you, after a few moments of contemplation, invite you to share it with someone near you, or you can write it in the chat, Zoomers. So think about that for a few moments. Who do you want to be now? Who do you want to be? When you're ready, I invite you to either maybe write that in the chat or turn to someone near you. Tell them, what is it that you would like to be now? Now, some of you may not have come up with anything, and that's okay. Maybe things like, for me, life is good, right? But when you ever feel that sense of discontentment, listen to that. Listen and see what it comes up to you. I want to share what people in the chat have said. So Hannah A. says, I want to be brave. Excellent. An excellent thing. And Matthew P. says, I experienced all three of those types of fear in my journey from my family's faith into paganism. I started in fear of failure and was a conformist, and then my world expanded when I joined the Navy. Now, though my family has completely ostracized me, I've grown into the man I want to be. Of course, I'm still growing and learning. That will never stop. Amen. Ralph H. says, I want to define and understand myself, not have others define me. Awesome. Kathleen M. says, I want to continue to have purpose. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Catherine T. says, I want to be strong and healthy again. Amen. So as Marianne Williamson, she reminds us, our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? And actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. So go shine your light. Let us sing.
Please stand as you're comfortable. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the world, all around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are supporting Build Futures. Build Futures provides immediate, essential services to help forgotten and abandoned youth, 18 to 24-year-olds, who recently returned to society. Most of our clients have little to no work experience. They might not have high school diplomas, and some are battling drug or addiction to alcohol. These young people are alone. They're hurting, lost, and facing insurmountable obstacles. You can find out more about Build Futures at buildfutures.org. There are multiple ways in which you can support the church and this organization. You can mail a check, you can go through our website, use an app called Vanco Mobile, or use the basket by the door as you leave. The choice is yours, and all the information is on our website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation
And now let us sing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share. We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
So by the way, I want to mention that that song that the choir sang, Wake Now My Senses, is my all-time favorite hymn. And they sang it because that was what was sung at my ordination. So I love that. Well, now is that time in our service when we are invited to honor the important event and people in our lives in this weekly ritual we call Joys and Sorrows, and everyone is invited, member, friend, visitor. So basically what we do is we come forward to light a candle to honor something that we're holding deep in our heart, something that we came here, maybe it struck us in the last days, weeks, or hours. And basically, if you would like to simply come forward in silence and do that, you're welcome to come forward and do that. If you would like to share your joy or sorrow with the congregation, you can write it out on a slip of paper here, and the ushers have it over here if you didn't get one when you first came in. And then hand it to me as you come forward to light your candle, and then I'll read them out loud. And of course, the Zoomers online, you can write it in chat, invite you to light a candle as well there. But here, Lori Kluge, who is our pastoral care associate, and she'll help you light candles, and she'll light a candle for our Zoomers for whatever they would like to write in the chat. So please come forward and light your candle. All right, Hannah, you're going to make me say this, aren't you? Okay. So Hannah A. says she would like a candle of gratitude for Reverend Sean's beautiful and inspiring sermon. Thank you, Hannah. Let's see, Linda C. says, a great joy for the delightful visit yesterday of our 4-month-old baby boy, Bodie, visiting from Oakland, and his mom, our granddaughter, OBGYN, Dr. Brittany. Right on. And Ralph, he said, he's like a candle of joy. He said, what joy. I just discovered why I related to my clients and students the way I did. Let's all discover more about ourselves. And Matthew P. says, after not having proper insurance for several months, I'm finally back on testosterone therapy, working toward one more procedure, though no ETA and dates for that yet. Oh, well, fingers crossed, that goes smoothly, right on. All right. And so we've got, Leanna S. says that Lucas, her son, it's his 2nd birthday is today. She says, he is the light and joy of my life, which is awesome. And I want to also just note that Leanna brought little cakes for everybody to celebrate his 2nd birthday. So here you go. If you didn't know, this congregation loves its cake. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I answered that call. I'm not just kidding. Francie C. says she's got a candle of joy. She says, happy to celebrate her daughter Sabrina's 52nd birthday on April 14th. She says she lives in Michigan, and it's wonderful watching her grow. Isn't that lovely? A mother with a 52-year-old. I love it. That's just awesome. I mean, parenting never ends, does it? That's just wonderful. So. And Sarah H. Lit a candle of gratitude. She says, thank you to Nancy and Tom. She said they took a part of Rob. Rob is her husband who passed away. Took a part of him to Egypt, where they were just visiting a place he wanted to go. That's really sweet. And both Sandy Martin and Sarah Hunter also lit a candle of concern and of hope and healing, because Sandy's husband, Don, is currently in the hospital with pneumonia. Yeah, he's in good spirits, but please, she said, please send healing thoughts and prayers in his direction and love. So. Let's see here. Oh, there is one more candle from Catherine T. She says, a candle of thanks. This week is the 10th anniversary of my brain surgery that saved my life. And while I struggle with health problems and other challenges, I am grateful to be alive and thankful every day to the people who work so hard for me. Amen, Catherine. Yeah. All right, let's hold and love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, whether they were spoken or silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect with one another. And let all of these moments remind us that we're not alone. Please join Lori in a spirit of prayer with a poem.
The Healing Time by Pesha Gentler. Finally, on my way to yes, I bump into all the places where I said no to my life, all the unintended wounds, the red and purple scars, those hieroglyphs of pain carved into my skin and bones, those coded messages that send me down the wrong street again and again where I find them. The old wounds, the old misdirections, and I lift them one by one close to my heart, and I say, holy, holy. Amen.
Okay. Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the warmth of youth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently. And yet, when we gather together, whether we're in the room or on Zoom, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to either write in the chat if you're a Zoomer, or if you're a roomer, to stand for a brief moment and tell us your name and where you're from. And we'll bring a microphone around so that our Zoomers can hear you. Do we have any visitors? There we go.
My name is Mike. I was invited by Craig Preston.
Well, welcome, Mike. I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
My name is Terry, and I'm visiting Peggy this weekend. And I'm from Santa Barbara, and I attend the UU church there.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Welcome. Welcome. Anybody else? Okay. All right. If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for our youth and children, please contact us at hello@ocuuc.org, and we will help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we'll help you get connected.
So I have some announcements for you all. You can see all the sort of fun things that are coming up here and what we're doing. We've got our auction. If you have auction items that you would like to offer. So if for those of you who are new, this is one of our fundraising things that we do for the church. People offer up all sorts of things. Oftentimes it's a dinner or something like that, and then people bid on places at that dinner at some later date. And we have this fun auction. It's a really fun night. And so like one of the things I think I'm going to offer this time, has anybody here ever done an escape room? Am I like the only one? A few people have done an escape room. Are they fun? Oh, they're totally fun. So I'm going to offer an escape room, which I'll take you. So basically an escape room, you go into a room. Now you're not actually locked in there, but you have to find clues about how to get out. And so there's all these puzzles that you have to do. It's loads of fun. Okay, so that's something I'm going to be offering. So I'll pay for that, and then people can bid on a spot, and the money then goes to the church. That's kind of how the auction works. So you'll see a big auction sign out there. If you'd like to sign up with something, please go and do that. The other big thing that I want to mention to you is that today our one and only Dave Carlson over here, he is going to be speaking to us about cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. I know the first one, I don't know the second one. So I want to invite you to come back here. So basically at noon, go get your coffee, come back. And if you don't know what those things are, here's a wonderful professor to tell you all about it. And for Zoomers, we invite you to just stay online. You can go get a cup of coffee if you want and come on back and hear Dave, because we're going to have it online as well. So please do that. You can chat for a while and then join Dave and hear all about that. It sounds really interesting. The other thing is I'm going to be kind of, sort of, a little bit out of the office next week. I'm trying to take Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. We'll see if that actually happens. So if there's anything that can wait to the following week, that would be great. But feel free to reach out to me if you need me for anything. And then the other thing I want to mention is Raina. So many of us you here who've been here for a long time, Raina Hamry used to be our director of religious education, and she went on to become a minister, and she is a community minister in the wild now, but she is a very much into paganism. She runs actually her own school in paganism, and she's going to be offering for Unitarian Universalists and other people as well, a book club to learn more about paganism and the various different types of paganism. So if you've always wanted to learn, and they're going to be meeting on the 27th, once a month, there'll be a book that you'll read in between each month, and then we'll get together to discuss it. So it's a great opportunity if you want to learn more about paganism and everything like that. It should be a lot of fun. She's very incredibly knowledgeable about all the different forms of paganism that are out there. So Judith, where are you? Judith is back there in the blue sweater. If you'd like to sign up, she'll be outside with a sign-up sheet for Raina's Pagan Book Club. And if you're online, you can either send me or Judith an email, and we'll get you signed up as well. Let's see here. All right. You can also put it in the chat, and then I'll get it from the chat as well. So that's another idea as well. And then, last but not least, as you know, we are coming toward I never want to say the end of our pledge drive, but we're trying to wrap up the pledge drive as best we can. And Deborah Quam is our chair of the pledge drive, and we've been asking people, if you get your pledge card, because everybody forgets. I used to forget all the time, right? So to entice people to get their pledge card in, we've been holding a raffle, and as soon as you get your thing, your name gets put into this raffle. And yeah, so here's Deborah. Let's do it more, and we'll do the raffle.
So thanks everybody who have turned in their pledge cards. We've had really good rate of return. So we're about a month in. Well, March 19th was our big kickoff crepes and et cetera that we had here, which I think everyone enjoyed. That might have to be a repeat performance for next year. But we're doing well, but just because this is the last drawing doesn't mean that you can't turn in a pledge card after this. And in fact, there's a few that we're still waiting on. So if you are thinking about it, maybe you could get your pledge card. You can go online and do it, or you can turn in your card. If you've lost your card, which can happen, I'll be right out here at the table this morning. So let's see who our big winner is for today. All right. Okay. I'm not looking. Yeah. She won one time. Sean won a couple weeks ago, I understand, but she gave it back. Ginny Chan. Yay! So Ginny is the winner of our fifth and final $50 Visa gift card. So enjoy, Ginny, and thank you for your pledge.
All right, let's sing our final words and then go out with light.
Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroyed. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroyed. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy.
Woo. This service is over. Let our service continue.